welcome back to episode 6 of the In Our Headspace podcast. I kind of just want to jump into this.
Let's fucking do it. Let's fucking do it.
Okay. So I had a really cool dream last night. Well, it was technically this morning because I'd already woken up and then I fell back asleep. And the dream basically was like, and I was fully aware the whole time that it was a dream.
Okay.
But I was like, basically, I went back into like my memories from like being in high school in 2017. And I was in our broadcasting class and I looked around. And I was like, I remember this exact moment in time.
Okay.
And like,
is it when you pulled down my pants?
No, it was
Okay.
not when I pantsed you. It was, we were just in like the studio area.
Okay.
And we were just all like standing there. And then I was like, no way. And I was like, this is literally just one of my memories. And I'm walking around it in the first person, like just like reliving it essentially.
That sounds awesome.
It was like amazing. And then like I pulled you aside and I was like, Jared, this is going to sound crazy.
Oh my
But
God.
this is one of my memories that I'm re-experiencing. And that almost like pulled you out of it. And then you were able to like see it from my perspective alongside me. So no one else knew.
What the fuck is a simulation theory
It
going
was
on, Trey?
literally-
What the
it felt
fuck?
like I was like time traveling or something. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I had to go to work at Shoe Carnival
Oh my God.
that same day in my memory. So then we both went because like I think at that point technically you weren't like there to the people within my dream.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it was like
I'm an NPC.
but it felt like you knew, like
Oh my
you
God.
understood what was going on. And so I was like, then we went to Shoe Carnival and I was just like I think David was there.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
You're like,
this
my
is
God.
so weird that I'm reliving this stuff. And then remember that guy Noah?
Yeah, I remember Noah.
Okay. The weirdest part about seeing him in my dream is I literally forgot
You forgot his
haven't-
existence?
Yeah, I didn't.
I forgot his existence too until you just brought him up.
And so like I saw him in my dream and I was like, this is real. This is like legit a memory of mine. This is so strange. And we walked out of the store and then like my dream ended and I woke up and I was like, whoa. I want to learn to do that more. That was so cool.
Just you talking about that made me think of an Alan Watts lecture about
Mhm.
God,
Okay.
which because he was talking about dreams and God,
Mm-hmm.
which then I tied that into my head about an Alex Jones conspiracy theory about God in the real world,
Okay.
or in the real world in a sense like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't get into it. Maybe I will.
Okay.
Like interesting connections there just popped in my brain.
Okay.
Okay, so my dreams.
Yes. What's your
Okay,
dream?
completely random compared to you. 3 of them. The first one, I was in Paris with like 3 other people or something like that. Like on a longboard. I haven't longboarded.
Or gone to Paris.
Yeah, like just doing God knows what.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I know, I'm like in an Airbnb or something.
Okay.
Okay, that's the end of that.
Right.
Well, that was actually the second one. My bad. The first one,
Mm-hmm.
some weird like apocalypse dystopian shit. I'm standing there with like 5 other guys. We have guns. And then this like, I don't know, like 20-foot robot comes out and like shoots at us. And I just remember like the shot at me. It was like an explosion. It like pushed me up against a truck. I was like, oh God, I'm going to die.
Oh my God.
And then I just kept running. And I'm like, I think those 4 other dudes are dead.
Oh God.
And so that's all I remember from that one.
Oh.
The third one was the coolest though.
Okay.
It's kind of like an Avatar thing. I know.
Dude, I've been there. I've been there.
Well, like I wasn't there. I was a spectator. I was a
Oh.
spectator. I was observing this world.
Uh-huh.
And so it was like a nighttime Chinese thing. So like
Mhm.
Chinese, like I know it was like Chinese theme because you know like the roofs on Chinese buildings, they just
Yes.
look Chinese. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do because it's for a specific they build those roofs for a specific reason.
All right.
But
And then and it was nighttime and it's almost like a cross up between like a Pirates of the Caribbean town in Avatar, or Chinese town, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just nighttime. There were ships coming in and out, and there were like lanterns everywhere to light it up. Very cool
Okay.
scenery. Very cool scenery.
Okay.
And then I just remember like it was like Toph, okay? Like she was there. She was
Yes.
walking around. And then all of a sudden this one person attacked her, and they had like a golden mask on.
Yeah.
And like she could like feel them walking around because that's how she
With the
works.
tremor sense.
Yeah, but like
yeah.
she got worried because like they jumped, and then she didn't know where they
she
were from
couldn't see
there.
them. Yeah.
And so
yeah.
then she sandbended, which I don't know if she can do that.
Pretty sure. Yeah, no, she can't because she was doing it in
Okay.
one of the episodes.
And so she sandbended like a little like ball around her protector,
Yeah.
and the person ended up like stabbing through and like almost hit her, and it, like
Whoa.
went through the sand. And I'm just watching, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. Whoa, this is a cool show.
Well, then she like, and then she felt them. She knew where they were, and then she immediately like grabbed their masks and started to rip it off. And there was like some weird like Cthulhu like black and red like tentacle shit, like
Yeah.
liquid tentacle shit was like
Ugh.
when she was ripping off the mask, like that was all around that person.
Uh-huh.
And then like she just knew who that person was, and there was something to do with the mask and like being addicted to it, or some like the golden mask.
Oh, okay. Gave you some power or something.
And then the person like just ended up fleeing with the mask, and that was the end of that dream. So
wow. What a roller coaster of dreams.
I know.
I've had 2 dreams now
Yeah.
where I've died.
See, those are the best.
Those are the freakiest because my brain is just like, you want to know what it's like to die?
Well, see,
Here
like
you go. And it literally feels like I die. And then I wake up and I'm
See-
like, what just happened?
See,
I got
that's-
shot in the head in my dream.
see, that's completely different from mine, because like from the dreams where like I think I've told you this one. This one was I was in a sewer with like other people, and I just
Okay.
like someone had a shock and ended up shooting like a hole in my
Yeah.
my stomach was missing,
Yeah.
and I remember
Like
laying
Looney
down
Tune style.
and I remember laying down on the sewer floor as someone was like trying to help me. It was like, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah.
And I remember I'm like I was literally waiting there to die was in my mind,
Uh-huh.
but then like I just remember getting up. I was like, I guess I'm not dead yet. And just like walking out of the sewer and then
Oh my,
going on a spaceship. It was
oh
fucking
my God.
like, it's weird because I have like 2 different experiences with death. Or there's the death where it's like, oh, I'm just straight, I'm not dead. And then there's another time, I was in a park,
Mhm.
like, and it was like so run down, like vines, like no one's been there for a long time.
Yeah.
And Carson was there. I don't know why he was there. And I just remember we're walking down the park, and
Yeah.
there's just vegetation everywhere.
Yeah.
And I just remember telling him, I was like, oh yeah, I died. And like, here's the life story. Here's what it was like. And I was just walking.
So it's kind of peaceful though.
It was very peaceful.
Dude,
And it was just me talking about my death and everything.
did I tell you mine?
I remember you've told me, but I don't remember.
So mine was like, I for some reason volunteered to be like killed.
yes.
It was like a
yep.
thing. And it was me and Shane.
Your mom, right?
Oh, she comes into the story later. So like, anyways, I basically joined this thing where it's like you volunteered to be executed or whatever. I don't know why. And I was like sitting there, and each person was like, they'd stand on their knees, and then a person would come over with the same like piston guns that they used to like kill cattle in like slaughterhouses, where it just shoots a bolt out, but it's not an actual bullet. And so we're all standing there, and then the person to my there's 3 of us in a rows. Some person I didn't know, Shane, and then me.
Okay.
And the person I didn't know died, and I instantly realized, oh God, oh, I'm gonna die. And like, I tried to get up and leave, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, you can't leave now. You've already
Oh,
committed. I'm like,
man.
what? And then they get Shane, and then all I know is I felt it like it pressed against my temple.
Oh.
And then I felt it, and then I hit the ground, and I could still see, and then I slowly felt like everything faded, and like I could feel like a weightlessness to my body. Like I literally felt like what I'd perceive as death feels like.
Okay.
And then like all of a sudden I'm in my old house, which was that house we just moved out of, and the what happened in my dream, what happens after you die is you just get to relive your last day of existence for eternity. And my last day was waking up playing Pokemon on my 3DS, and then volunteering for this death thing and then
Oh.
feeling that feeling of death every time. And the reason I knew that is because for some reason my mom could communicate with me in the
Yeah.
afterlife. And so like I talked to her and she's like, no, we're still like, I'm still alive. I can just communicate to you. And this is what happens when you die. And I was like, what? And I remember feeling like this like pit in my stomach of like, oh, but what about like Mia and I, we were going to move out and
Mhm.
like my job, I was supposed to go into work today and I had all these plans and all this. And it was like this pit in my stomach. And it was
Yeah.
like terrifying. And I woke up and I remember being so like, it like disturbed me for like 3 days. And then the one I had on like 2 days ago,
Yeah.
it wasn't like that disturbing. It was like a really dumb, like weird dream. And all of a sudden, like I felt a gun. It was like the same feeling I had before. It was like pressing against my temple.
Yeah.
But it was a gun this time. And the person shot and like my vision flashed white.
Mhm.
And then like I literally thought I died. And then I opened my eyes and I was laying in my bed. And I was like, what if I just died in another life? And like I just wake up in my bed. And so and then there was one other dream that you'd remind me of. Oh yeah. But I also have like those weird power fantasy dreams where like I was the Avatar one time.
Mhm.
And I had 2 of these. So like one was I was an Avatar, but it like required an immense amount of energy for me to like bend.
Yeah.
But then I started like bending the earth and like making huge waves in the water. I was like, whoa. And then like not much happened in that dream.
Okay.
And then somewhat recently, within a year, I had a dream where I was like, I had the Force.
Oh, that's the best.
And I had to fight General Grievous. And he was terrifying. I had to fight Darth Maul and then back to back with General
that
Grievous.
sounds pretty rough, man.
And I literally couldn't do it. And I had to run. But I was like, I was trying to block.
Oh,
and I
that's
was like
so
getting
funny.
overwhelmed. And then I ran. And then Yoda was there.
Oh, God himself.
Yeah. And he
2v1 he carried.
no, like they
Oh.
didn't chase me for some reason. They just disappeared. And then Yoda said something to me about like training.
Oh.
And then like I was apparently in this giant mansion and I felt like this rumble.
Yeah.
And I ran outside and there's like tons of Jedi, like people.
Okay.
And I look up and there's this giant like tsunami coming over this mountain.
Yeah.
And it's gonna like crash onto the house. And then all of a sudden, like they were like, push, and everyone puts their hands up and they start like pushing the water and the water starts going up. Kind of like that scene in Endgame when like they're pushing that river up.
Yeah.
But it's like a bunch of Jedi using the Force. And then like I started doing it and that was the first time I felt the Force. And then I felt like a
Whoa.
really huge surge and I like knocked a
Oh my
tree over. And everyone looked at me like, whoa. And I was like, oh my God. And I felt the power. And then I ended up waking up after that. But
I've only had one Force stream, and it was such a like it like I guess a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, that was a nightmare," but that's just like,
Yeah.
I'll explain the situation.
yeah.
Like I was in this school, or not yet. I was in the school. I was an observer first, and then I actually came into the dream,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like there was a little girl, and
Yeah.
then her mom worked at the school as like another teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And this little girl liked lock picking and stuff like that. So she would break into doors where it's like, hey, that's a faculty room. You're not supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
And then she ended up doing that into a door that was underground of the school. I was like, oh, why is there a door down here?
Yeah.
And then from her perspective, from the other side of the door was another voice saying to open it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like she just knew she wasn't supposed to open it, but she did it anyways.
Oh God.
It's kind of like a devilish thing.
Yeah, like a demon.
Well, and she ended up opening the door, and then all of a sudden, like I magically like come into that place. Like
Yeah.
it's like I just entered.
Through the door.
No, like I just like willed myself into existence all of a sudden.
oh,
Like-
you were observing, and then
no,
all
I
of a
was
sudden
observing
you were
this whole
there.
time, and then all of a sudden, as soon as she opened the door, like
You were.
yeah, because like what ended up happening, like she opened the door and then she went in,
Yeah.
and it was almost like a closet, but like the closet went on forever.
Right.
From what I remember. But like, so she opened the door and then she went in there. She didn't come back. And then all of a sudden, like, I came into existence.
Okay.
And then I'm just like, ugh, I'm the one that has to get
You
her.
got to go in.
And so then I remember like walking in and it was fucking pitch black. And
Oh,
I could
God.
just see like shadows of objects that are just standing there.
Yeah.
And so then I'm walking there. And then I saw like some weird little girl that wasn't the girl that I was trying to find. I'm kind of like the girl from It or whatever. She had like shit clothing, like a shit gown that was really old, like an old white gown,
Mhm.
long ass hair, and she was just laughing and running away from me. I'm just like, you little fuck.
Get back here.
And then I just remember all of a sudden like using the force or whatever and going like super fast. Well, then I ended up.
I think you told me
I have
this.
told you. Well, then when I caught her, what ended up it being was like a little lizard dude. It's the weirdest dream ever. I'm like, what the fuck are you? And so I put him in a jar and I poked a hole through it because I didn't want him to die. And this was like the thing
How
causing all
kind.
the problems was a little lizard dude.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden I remember like I jump cut and there's this guy named Matthew.
Mhm.
I don't know if you ever knew Matthew. Not from Sean,
No.
but I haven't talked to this guy in a long ass time.
Okay.
Like I don't fucking know. Long time.
Yeah.
And I'm like in a backyard taking a shower. And-
As we do.
And I still have the lizard in my hand, like in the jar with me. And
Oh,
so I'm
okay.
here naked. And like it's a closed off shower, but it's just in a backyard for some reason.
Yeah.
And then I kind of peek my head. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? As I'm in the shower. And then I saw Matthew. I was like, oh, that's awkward. So I'm just going to wait in here a bit longer. And then I remember just coming out. And then I walk into the house that was the backyard I was in. I go into the house. And all of a sudden, it's my house. And it's like 12 a.m. I still have this lizard in my hand. And I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? So I remember just putting it in the freezer at the very back. And be like, oh, like
The little demon lizard.
yeah, so I just put the little lizard dude in the very back of the freezer because I don't know why I even did that. And then all of a sudden my dad came out and I was like, Dad, I could use the force.
Oh my God.
And then my dad said something weird and they like started floating and his eyes turned red. I was like, oh shit.
He's a boss. Boss music
Yeah.
starts playing.
And then I woke up. I was like, don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do with that.
Yeah, what? That's a sign, Jared. All your dreams mean something.
I don't know.
Oh, yikes, dude.
Should I talk about the whole Alan Watts and then connecting that to Alex Jones?
Go for it, Jared. You've got me hooked.
All right. So Alan Watts talked about dreams,
Okay.
and he said in the very first, like, let's just say you can control your dreams, right? Like
Yes,
to a
like-
T. Like you're basically conscious, like you're awake.
Mm-hmm.
And he
Isn't
said,
that lucid dreaming?
yes.
Okay.
And he's like, for the first week, that'd be awesome because it's like playing a game and then you turn on God mode or whatever.
Yeah.
Unlimited cash and you do everything. And he's like, I'd get boring really fast if you had God mode on, you had whatever you wanted to do, you just do it instantly because then you'd run out of things to do pretty quickly
Right.
because you're like, well, I wanted to do this, now I've done that. And then like that list is going to run out eventually,
Right.
how Alan Watts talks about it. And then he's like, at some point, you're just going to get super bored and you're not going to know what to do. And he's like, the only way to have fun with it again is when you didn't have any control over it and it was completely random.
Right.
And so then he then just relates it to, he then makes a bold statement where he says he believes that the individual, we, like,
Mhm.
are God and that
Mhm.
we just knew everything type of deal. And to make life more interesting again,
Oh.
we each live these individual experiences once again because it's just more fun this way, I guess.
So like we all come from the same
thing
thing, but our purpose is just
for all
recreational.
for all these feelings and experiences again that we've already experienced, just
Fascinating.
to have it this way. And so that's how he related to the dreams. And now,
Now, how does Alex Jones play
okay, so
into
now
this?
Alex Jones then he talks about, I don't know where he gets this information, but my
Yeah,
God, do I love.
Does anybody know?
That's a good question. He talks about God.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks it about like, I think he was, because he does talk about dimensions, and I know we talked about dimensions before,
Right.
and I believe he was talking about God in like a third dimensional perspective, and he said like God is he called it a conscious,
Yeah.
and he said he just floats around and it's just this conscious being.
Yeah.
And then he said, so God is this conscious being floating around in space or whatever. And then he said at the very tail end of God, at the tail end of it,
Yeah.
he said it's like the evil, it's the devil and all that stuff, and it's always trying to swim upstream and try to infiltrate God.
Interesting.
So that was his take on it. Again, I don't know how he got to that conclusion.
Okay.
And then he starts talking about dimensions and whatnot, and aliens specifically.
Okay.
And he talks about how people have taken like DMT, ayahuasca or something, and how like there's like 5 people in a room,
Yeah.
and they're all on like a hallucinogenic drug, and how there was like an instance where all 5 of the people like saw the same thing.
What?
And so Alex Jones was talking about like, you know, when you get high or drunk, like you talk about your friend like, oh, I remember those great times, and your friend's like, oh yeah, I remember shit like that, blah blah blah. Like
Right.
you have your own vision of it,
Yes.
but then like when everyone does the same thing and then sees the exact same thing, it's like that's kind of weird.
Wow.
Like I find that odd.
Maybe it's the deep-rooted government programming in us.
I know. And so then he starts talking about how there's these things called the clockwork elves. And they're okay, I know.
That's funny.
Like, and they're these like 4th dimensional beings that try to influence us.
Okay, like Elf on a Shelf.
Yeah, but for the wrong reason. Because he talks about it, and Alex Jones is saying like, and so what's so weird about it when you're talking about good and evil, God and the devil?
Uh-huh.
He's very confident when he says that like for some reason God and good won't intervene with the human, but the devil or the evil will always try to take advantage of the human whenever possible.
Right.
And like I feel like that concept alone, I think inherently kind of makes sense. For example, when giving a lot of like, so you remember the whole Smash community instance? Everyone's getting
a couple months ago.
like
Yes.
you like to be an influencer in that space means so little in reality. Like it's such a small community.
Oh yeah.
And then like when people get
So like nobody listening to this probably knows except for the people within our friend circle.
exactly. And so for people to be an influencer in that small group,
Mm-hmm.
and then all like they're like, I'm gonna abuse this power. They're abusing like the most minuscule of power you could possibly be given.
But
And
it's because they have it.
Yes, it's because they have it, which then I feel like that would relate back to what Alex Jones was saying, where evil always intervene.
Yeah.
Because how I would think about it, so like let's just say you do have power.
Yep.
I would always think, and I've done it before if we're playing a game together.
Yeah.
And I have like some admin shit over you. Like
You
the
instantly
easier thing
abuse-
is to abuse it, right? It's so much
Yes.
easier to abuse it and do whatever you want with it, and
Yes.
it's a lot harder to exert self-control over yourself.
Yes.
And so that's why I kind of think I understand where Alex Jones is coming from, where like evil will intervene, but like good won't.
So how does this relate to the Alan Watts thing?
Okay. So this is going back to aliens and where Alex Jones thinks
Mhm.
they come from.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Jones believes that the 3rd dimensional space is a wasteland, and that the higher knowledge pertains into like 4th dimensional stuff.
Oh my god.
And so this is where we get in back to the psychedelics
Okay.
and the clockwork elves.
That name gets me. It just needs to be like, if we ever have a band, it just need to call it the Clockwork Elves.
Yeah. And so this also goes back to the Nazis too, which is the crazy part.
It connects to everything.
Well, like, so the whole point I'm trying to get to is really the important part is the psychedelic drugs,
Mm-hmm.
supposedly allowing people to look into the 4th dimension type of deal.
Okay.
And so like the first instance, and this is all theory, I guess, but like, and I wanted to look this up, but I just haven't yet. So I just took Alex Jones' theory for it.
Okay.
Because he talks about like the Nazis were really advanced. Like I don't know if you knew that.
Not entirely. I think it makes sense.
Apparently, according to Alex Jones, like the Nazis were like the first to have nuclear power. Like they had like a really efficient way. Yeah,
A German is the one who figured out how to make a nuke.
Einstein. Yeah.
Or no, Oppenheimer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Einstein helped with one of America's projects.
Manhattan Project.
Yeah. Obviously, he did a lot more, but yes.
And so they were the first, or not the like. They were just. I'll just call them leading because I don't know the facts exactly. I'm just going off of what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then apparently they were the first to like develop flying saucers and stuff like that. They were working on those.
Wait, have we even developed a flying saucer?
Probably, honestly.
Well, okay, yeah, that's
But,
that's a fair point.
Apparently the Nazis were working on that. I know weren't the Nazis the first ones to create the highway? Because
well, oh yeah, actually yes.
Yes, the Nazis
to
were
transport military
faster.
equipment. The Autobahn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he lists more that they started or expanded or just flat out created. And it was like, why were the Nazis like so good at creating all this stuff? Like, was it a coincidence that so like
why were they so far ahead?
Yeah, why are they so far ahead? Was the question. Like why are they so advanced?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the motor industry, what was it? Not Ford. Was it Ford?
No, Ford's American.
The car.
Well,
Volkswagen.
I was gonna say the only one I think of is Volkswagen.
Volkswagen started there. Like,
yeah,
they just had a lot of advanced stuff for some reason.
Right.
They were leading a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And according to Alex Jones, the reason why there were so many advanced people in Nazi Germany was because they were taking psychedelic drugs. And so, you know how I was going back to how there's like these clockwork elves?
Yeah.
So supposedly
and doing the psychedelics opens your
and so that's how
perception.
you talk to the clockwork elves, first of all.
Oh my god.
And see, like we get into such a weird line of like reality versus what's going on in your brain.
Here's one thing.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but everything outlandish sounds crazy. Before I continue.
Yeah.
I'm not defending Alex Jones. I don't know much about Alex Jones, but what I do know is like it's kind of wacko. But what you're saying is like, I can't say, wow, that's so unrealistic, because like I've said before, our perception of reality is extremely limited, and it's hard to say. I've never done psychedelics. I've never seen clockwork elves or whatever the hell. So like,
neither have I.
So I can't say, well, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's impossible.
Well, see,
I just think it's kind of crazy.
I like to keep an open mind about it. Because like, you know, like with the whole Wright brothers thing, people are like, what the fuck you doing? Flying?
Yeah.
You fucking
nice
kidding
try.
me?
And here we are.
So that's why with stuff like
the
this.
sun.
Yeah.
You think it's the center of our solar system?
You fucking dumbass.
Wow. Idiot.
You know everything revolves around the earth. But and so okay, so going back to why they're quote unquote so advanced. So this then goes back to, you know how I said there was a shared experience with like 5 people, they all saw the same thing.
Yes.
Supposedly what Nazi Germany was doing. So I guess like not only can you communicate clockwork elves, there's more things you can communicate with, supposedly.
Cthulhu.
Yeah, sure. And supposedly what the Nazis were doing were communicating to more advanced civilizations, and then they were straight up showing them how to become more advanced. And so that's how they were able to become so much more advanced compared to the rest of the world.
So they were communicating with something like a higher intelligence, and then that higher intelligence was then showing the Nazis.
Yes, but then supposedly there were costs to like for this knowledge. One of them were like blood sacrifices. They had to kill like 6-year-olds and below or something for their blood in exchange for the knowledge.
Okay.
And then there was like another cost for like the knowledge. But like what makes that stuff so important, because you know how I just said like we get into like this weird shit where it's like it's not real.
Yes.
Well, like it's kind of that changes it then when you take the psychedelic drug, you receive whatever knowledge, and then you make that real. You know, you get what I'm saying? Like,
oh yeah,
it's like that's like okay, that's like the game changer. It's
that's
like okay,
the thing that makes it real is even if you get an idea in
Yeah.
one of these situations, and then you can then translate it into reality. That's when it's like,
Like, holy shit.
was that really just a hallucination,
Yeah. Oh, and that
or was it a sign?
see, the Buddhists talk about. I think it's Buddhists or Hindus. I always get them confused.
Buddhism and Hinduism are two different beliefs.
I know, and I get confused which one.
Yeah, okay.
I get confused which one talked about it.
Right.
But one of the two said that like they believe the third dimension, like the physical world, is an illusion.
Oh yeah, I think it's the Buddhism.
I think it might be Buddhism, but and the example is like when you're having a dream and you experience emotion, that didn't happen in the real world. Like that happened in your mind,
right?
But you still actually had those emotions, just like you're talking about death. You had fear and anxiety in that moment,
yeah.
but that didn't actually happen in real life. So what would you fall that under? And so that's why the Buddhists, again, pretty sure it's Buddhists, they're like the third world, the third dimensional stuff. That doesn't matter. That's the illusion of it all. There's more to that,
which is entirely true, considering at least what we've made our statement on it is like, yes, our world is what we perceive, but our world isn't. How should I say this? The factual reality.
Yeah, and so I still want to tie this back in. So this is going back to Clockwork Elves.
Okay.
From what I remember, they're actually just machines. Like they're not even like
beings.
They're not even like biological, I guess.
Okay.
They're just machines, which is like weird because like that's a pretty advanced machine, I guess.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that according to Alex Jones, and it's like I don't know how the fuck you got this information. When you communicate to them, apparently they're like a test, and they try to get you to do the wrong thing for some reason. And so
they want you to fail the test.
They want you to like. So when people do like these psychedelic trips or whatever, at least with like the Nazi Germany one, for example, if that really happened, like people are doing it for like a higher, or they're wanting a what do you want to call it? A higher state of enlightenment, looking for more knowledge through this way.
Yes.
And suppose if these Clockwork Elves, they're not very good people, and they want to sway you towards evil for some reason and make you do the wrong things.
Okay.
And so then Alex Jones he then talks about how the Clockwork Elves actually like they're not physical like we are.
Okay.
And he was saying what's so awesome about us is that like how we are compared to Clockwork Elves, where we can create where they can't. All the Clockwork Elves in this like because I think in like Mormonism, Christianity, I think I know one of the religions have like the concept of the devil, like he's not physical. The only thing the devil can do is convince you to do things. So like the devil could just tell you to do something and persuade you to do it, then you'll do it. The devil doesn't
He doesn't take control.
He doesn't actually take control. He doesn't actually harm people. He tells people to harm people.
Okay.
And so then how Alex Jones saw this whole thing was that like the Clockwork Elves are like these devils, and then the humans are like the potentiality of God because we're the ones that create, or we're the image of God.
Okay.
And that all the Clockwork Elves try to do is taint the image of God, which is what we are.
And so they're the bad influence.
And so then turning us into like some sort of like fallen angel type of deal.
Interesting.
And so that's how I was relating it then to, we go from dreams where Alan Watts is saying we could be this entity and we're just experiencing our dreams because we got bored.
Right.
And so then going back to Alan Watts saying this whole fourth dimension shit and how we're related to God, being in his image and creating things and taking psychedelics and getting something from a higher power, like weird shit like that. That's what I was trying to. That's what I was thinking about.
Okay.
And I certainly I think that's fun to think about.
It is cool to speculate on our reality because there's so many like matrix theories.
Yeah, like, well, it's crazy because this stuff even goes back because then he talked like it was Mayan or Aztec where they did the exact same thing. Because I know the pyramids have it, but I think that is an Aztec or Mayan like sculpture or whatever, or hieroglyph or whatever you want to call it, where they had like some spaceship as well. this goes, the reason why I like this one so much,
Yeah.
the whole psychedelics attaining a higher knowledge,
Uh-huh.
because this is the only thing that makes sense to me, except a third dimension, like a physical alien coming to Earth. I've told you about this so many times when we're at Cameron's. Like,
Yeah.
I talked about the megalithic objects,
Yes.
and I'm like, these beings before the Egyptians, and the Egyptians had bronze tools, and they made the
Oh, yeah,
pyramids.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I was pretty advanced for their time, doing all this crazy shit.
Yep.
And so there are these people, whatever they are, before the Egyptians that built these megalithic pyramids
Then
Their
that then got
architecture-
destroyed.
that got destroyed, and their architecture was so much better. Like, they were just so fucking advanced, and there's like no trace of how they could have made these, like how they could have cut stone so perfectly.
Yeah.
I know like one of the tourists in Egypt, he talks about, because they have like it was like a cutting board of stone. It's like whatever these people were before the Egyptians, we know this is like their cutting board.
Whoa.
And they were talking about how they think it was like something to do with water, and they were just saying how like it was like 3 times more effective than what we do right now, and all this weird shit. And the only thing that so besides, again, aliens coming to Earth and giving these people technology and blowing them up,
Mhm.
the only thing I could think of then is like, did they straight up do psychedelic drugs, communicate with God knows what, and then translate that and like, oh, we're just going to start making advanced shit.
And then they left.
Well, maybe they left, or maybe they kept doing it because then for some reason Clockwork Elves like to do something evil. Maybe some of them got tainted and
they
they're like,
destroyed themselves.
and they just destroyed everything. And maybe there was some sort of civil war, because like that makes sense. Like Nazi Germany went on a war, and supposedly they, with all their
They were-
advanced shit, they were
yeah.
using from the psychedelic
then they got-
drugs.
Tainted. That's the whole theory. That's how it kind of comes back around.
So I'm like, that's why I like it so much, because again, not only are these megalithic objects found in Egypt, they're also found in Middle America, and the same thing. They're like there's just no trace of how the fuck these people made them.
Oh yeah. I don't think I've gone into full detail. I've said it like twice. That's somewhere. There's a lot of weird consistencies between different ancient civilizations about like common denominators. Like another one would be like dragons are
Yeah,
pretty much every semi-advanced culture.
and it's not like they exchanged and they're like, this is what a dragon is.
And the somewhat, I guess, theory behind why that's the case is because humans are naturally scared of reptiles and serpents. And so like in the Bible, the snake, it represents the devil and evil. And in Europe, dragons were huge monstrous beasts. And in Norse mythology, the world serpent was the destroyer of the world and things like that. But then you go over in Eastern culture, more Asian, and all these dragons are like wise teachers or like divine creatures that control the elements or things like that, where
That's so weird.
it's just fascinating that like it's consistent in like across from like Europe, Asia, South America. I don't know about in North America. I don't know much about North American.
Is Kukulkan a dragon?
Yeah, Kukulkan's a serpent of the wind, or it's also he's similar. I think the Mayan version is Kukulkan, and the Aztec version is Quetzalcoatl, or
Something like that. Which
however it's pronounced. Yeah.
I think this is from Joe Rogan's podcast. Like in one of those
Okay.
Mayan or Aztec temples, I think it was like Quetzalcoatl or something.
Yeah.
They had like a sacrifice room and like
Oh yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
thousands and thousands of.
the temple of Kukulkan.
Did you know there's a pyramid inside the temple of Kukulkan? I think
A pyramid inside of it,
there's a pyramid inside of the temple of Kukulkan.
like a straight up like.
Yeah, a pyramid that's inside of the
What
temple
the-
of Kukulkan.
This is getting crazy,
Something weird about pyramids, man.
dude. Pyramids, dragons. Ugh, that is really strange, because that makes me think like That just further I don't think the theory of aliens coming to Earth and helping us build is as fun as like there was life before us that is either left or
Yeah, like
completely extinct without a trace, which would be unlikely.
what I like is or some sort of like experiment or whatever where aliens came and then they just accelerated like some evolution processes to create us. Cause
Weird.
Alex Jones again talked about it where it's like, oh yeah, we're like related to chimps, but then like we're also like extremely related to like rats or some shit.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
We're related to rats as well. Which this goes back to like remember I had this talk about DNA where like everything is related because we came from one source of life.
Right.
But as Alex Jones viewed it, if we were like he views us as like accelerated evolution from aliens.
Don't even know how that would.
I don't
Fourth
know.
dimension. That's what it would be.
See, like that's the so Terrence McKenna talked about it in his lectures. He talked about how like the Africans, like what they would do because they were the first.
Mm-hmm.
You would get a pile of whatever, and then you have someone try it out and eat it. It's like, oh, he died. Probably shouldn't
Don't
eat
eat
that.
those.
And it's just at some point they would have came across psychedelics, would have consumed those, and that's why Alan Watts thinks the human brain, because I don't know the history about this stuff, and from what I remember in his lectures, the human brain went over evolved very, very fast, and he thinks that has something to do with the psychedelics that the Africans would eat. And then this also goes back to like what like because I'm pretty sure your brain produces DMT or something like that, which allows you to dream. And that's like the same stuff that you consume when you
I've
take
heard
like
about that.
psychedelics.
Yeah.
It's like the same stuff. It's the same dream stuff, or whatever the fuck you want to call
Dream sauce.
it. Dream sauce, exactly.
That's gonna be the name of this episode. I'm just gonna call it Dream Sauce.
Yeah, and so like I think a theory would be or whatever. It's like people started to consume these psychedelics or whatever that contained like DMT or whatever the fuck they contain.
Okay.
That then changed how our brain is or whatever. And now like we could also produce some of that stuff when we sleep.
Weird.
I know, right?
So like that unlocked it in our brain. Well,
It just
so
fucking changed us.
here's something. I'm about to do a real smooth transition.
All right.
So another thing that we have in common with all of these ancient people, early modern humans, is art and creating like
Mhm.
our weird instinctual drive towards art and entertainment
Yeah.
and like creating. And I think it's just interesting that like art has so many different forms and ways to be perceived. And I'm just wondering, like, because I think there's traces of there is definitely traces of like drawings, but like drawings for art as well, dating back to like really early humans. And but there's like there are some other creatures that kind of do it,
Like an elephant.
but not to the same extent of just doing it because it's art and artistic. And for the purpose of, I guess art is a form of communication. Well, it definitely is, but I guess it depends on the type of art. But as far as like,
I would say like I would say it's definitely an expression.
expression, that's a good way to say it.
Because Academy of Ideas, I really like his channel. He did a
Okay.
video on this a long time ago. Maybe he's done another one. I don't know. And he made the argument that art is a representation of like your current era or whatever. It represents like what your people are going through.
Oh yeah.
A physical representation of it. And so like when you look at all the pictures of like ancient Greek times, it's prosperity, it's these chiseled amazing statues.
Oh,
It's a time of growth and science, like
yeah.
fucking beautiful time.
Yes.
And then, there's drawings of when Rome fell, and it's terrible. You know, like firewalls flinging over, walls shattered, statues broken in half.
Fall of the Empire. Yeah.
And then there's drawings.
Then there's the Renaissance.
There's the Renaissance. There's pictures of like the dark. What did they call it during the Christianity? The dark times or
Dark
the dark
Ages.
The Dark Ages.
Yeah.
Or I think it was the Dark Ages, where like you look at those pictures, like very desolate, empty.
Yes, and fear. I think fear is a trend.
Yeah, and so like he was showing all of this past history art, and was saying, oh, like during this time, this was going on. During this time, this was happening.
Yeah.
And so when he got to modern art, that's when like abstract, like really,
yeah,
really started to come up. And I typically, when I look at abstract art, I find it pretty disturbing. Like,
really,
I find it very like. You see a dude where like half his face is a cactus, the other half is like a robot.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the bottom left is his actual chin, then the bottom right is some fucking horse. You know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so he related this back to anxiety and depression being more prevalent than it has before.
And it's manifesting itself in the art.
And so when you look at people's expressions of their art and you look at their quote unquote abstract art, because when I look at that and I compare it to some Roman thing, like, I'm not trying to be an asshole when I say this. Like, when I look at the abstract, I'm like, that's disgusting.
No, yeah.
Like,
and honestly, I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music has gone that exact same direction, where music has now become a lot more about like modern artists write so much about anxiety, depression, sadness.
That's so true.
Like that's so prevalent now.
And that's funny because like we could go back to this. We're like the loneliest generation ever, even though we're like more connected than ever.
Right.
So going back to the art thing, like, so when looking at a monstrosity, like beauty, ugliness, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like in a sense, like you could get something beautiful from something ugly.
Yeah. And
so like you could look at this art and be like, truly understand this meaning.
It's all subjective.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
And this is literally interpretation here. So,
yes.
You know, you could write off whatever I'm saying. But I really did enjoy his view on it, because when just comparing all these eras of art to what was going on in the world, it really is almost like a snapshot of what's going on.
And I think the most fascinating part about that statement is he's not even necessarily referring literally to the fact that they painted what was going on. It's just the vehicle in which the art is being presented, such as if the painting has a ton of detail and it's beautiful,
yeah,
versus if it's almost less so and more like dramatic, versus if it's detailed but it like doesn't really make sense or anything like that. Like, I think each of those pieces plays in, and that plays in for all art. So, like when it comes to photography, or not photography, painting. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like artistry, statues, and like craftsmanship, and more modern times of music. Well, music's been around for a long time, but I meant like recorded music, and even more modern like film and photography, and just like all of these things, movies and music specifically recently have been a lot more like, I mean, yes, there were kind of some sad, depressing movies when movies were kind of still becoming a big thing, but I think it's such in our social consciousness to like vent our fear and our anxiety and our I guess even sometimes aggression through the art and through like the delivery of the art, whether it be like I don't even know the specifics of my example I'm about to give, but I just remember there was it was a horror movie I watched, and the director said, this movie, like, though the story has nothing to do with how it relates to me, but like the emotion that the movie gives you and the feeling you have throughout watching the movie is a direct like translation of how he used to feel as a kid. And like he's basically projecting his like anxieties and fears and hardships into this movie without them being literal.
Yeah, I think that's why. So like when I look at a lot of Rowan paintings, I'm like, damn, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Because the vibe I get from it, from what they were expressing,
Yeah.
like all this hard work, all this greatness that you're building up.
Yeah.
And then even the same with more desolate, barren pictures, like the Dark Ages when everyone was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Even I like some of those paintings because
there's always a flip side to it as well, because during the Dark Ages, then there was the stories of King Arthur and like this greatness.
Yeah.
And same with the Greeks, and same with the Romans, and same with nowadays with superheroes and comics and stories, like fiction versus nonfiction.
Yeah, and like even like with these desolate, barren, wasteland pictures, I still enjoy them, even though the whole vibe is like death, emptiness, pointlessness type of deal.
Right.
I still enjoy that, but like I just genuinely can't get behind the abstract, and it could be because maybe in a sense it's like too personal, relatable right now in the moment, or it's just like oh,
I'd say abstract art is even more subjective. I mean, this isn't by any means an unpopular opinion, but it's very much like it's almost so subjective to the point where like the creator is the only one who really understands it.
Oh yeah.
And like at least understands its true intention. And then they make it abstract, so it's like you can project whatever emotion you want onto whatever this is. But for me, I created it from this emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But then it kind of ruins the abstractness if you try to explain it to people, because then you're giving it a right or a wrong.
Yeah.
If you look at an abstract painting and be like, what's that supposed to mean? And the person who created it is
abstract.
like, well, yeah, exactly. The creator's like, well, it's supposed to be my year so far and the sadness I felt. And then they're like, wow, that's a terrible interpretation of that. That's not how I feel.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's almost an art in general, sharing, whether you're creating the art or you're enjoying the art, sharing it with other people is also a very vulnerable thing, because it's like, this is something that I've emotionally attached to. Here, look at it. And then it's like, that sucks. And you're like, oh, okay. Like with music or paintings or movies, and people's opinions of these things get in the way of like honestly the true point of their existence.
Yeah.
And I think we're definitely moving towards a more manufactured era of art as far as like movies and music and even paintings and stuff, but there are still things out there. Like I'd still consider most movies to still be art. There are ones that aren't made from a vision or passion. They're made purely from calculations. But like music, I'd say even more so is becoming even further into art, because even if you don't agree with the song's message, the song is about someone trying to send a message.
Yes.
I'm not that big into rap, but I can understand that like most rap songs, even if they're not really about things I like listening to, are about something somebody cares about.
Fuck bitches, get money.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I don't align with that, but
sometimes they're catchy.
People do. And that's the thing, is the nice thing about music is it can transcend its original meaning and still be liked.
I like Vinnie Paz, but like a lot of his meanings I don't agree with.
Right.
I just enjoy how he puts it together.
Right.
It's like,
and it's
like
also subjective for what people get out of music. I like listening to music for almost firstly the meaning of the song.
Oh yeah, you give me your diagnosis of
Yes.
it. I'm like, doctor, tell me,
Yes.
doctor.
I like deep diving into like what the song is about and what it is before I like But then there's like other people I know where they're first and foremost, it's like, I want to hear how the song makes me feel. And then it's like, okay, what's the song about? And then it's, how does it technically sound? And like, I've never been big into like, well, this is a generic sounding song. Cause it's like I said, I like taking it on a more case by case basis and being more interested in what the person has to say. And if I don't feel what the person has to say is important to me, then I'm less interested. But that doesn't mean it's outright a bad thing. And I think that's what frustrates me about discussing the topic of art or music specifically, is like people get so caught up in whether they're right in their opinion or not. And like, well, my opinion's more right than your opinion. You don't have any grounds because you don't have the same experience I do, which is not true.
Like, so I could kind of transition or pivot off what we're talking about. So like, we're talking about art in these eras or these ages, whatever you want to call it. Like,
yeah.
So like right now, you know, the popular thing for us and our messages like anxiety, depression.
Yeah.
That's kind of the norm. Would you say that's the norm?
Yes.
Everyone
I'd
talks
say,
about it.
especially in the past decade.
So going back into the future, relating back to Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh.
So it's funny. So in my sociology class, there's a thing. It's called it's called like anumai or anumai.
Anime.
So see, so what anumai was from this guy Durkheim. He was studying people like committing suicide.
Interesting.
And from what I remember, like a lot of people are committing suicide were in a state of anumai, which just means in a state of normlessness, where they don't know what's normal.
Yeah.
And so I made a joke to Davis. I was like, dude, that's what anime is. Or these main characters are like, oh, all these people misjudge me.
Yeah.
I don't belong here.
I'm the underdog. Everyone's the underdog of their own story, but
well, like legit though, that's what like so you're Sword Art Online.
Okay.
You watched that with Shane.
I watched season 1.
Yeah, that they call that an isekai where you
Yes, I'm admitting to that.
where you teleport to a different world.
Okay.
I view that as literally that concept is like so prevalent in anime where this main character is like they don't fit here, they don't belong here. So they literally go to a different place that's not from Earth.
Right. They try to escape the normality of the world.
They're experiencing what
And they
I
have
would
to
believe.
Sorry, continue.
Well, like I go like they're in the state of this normlessness.
Yes.
And they don't like it and like fuck it, and then they just go somewhere else magically. And I think that relates to a lot of people with anime.
And I think that's why
Like I don't think anime was originally that.
No, but I think you wouldn't say it's like specific to anime, but it's a very common thing.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's why it's taken off so much, is because people have found it so relatable in that sense. And I've even felt that way, but like I've never really been that into anime, but like from the few that I have watched, I think I've gotten that same vibe, and that is one of the enjoyable things about it. But at the same time, you've got to have that like separation from what you're consuming versus what you're doing.
Yeah. Like, and anumai, whatever it is again. Like that's not typically something you really want to be in.
Right.
But like good can quote unquote come out of it. Like when the Industrial Revolution was happening, that was like a time of anumai because technology is changing so much.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing, like women in the workplace started happening.
Right.
And so like, I would say when there's pivots in eras, generations, whatever.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be like, oh, like what should we do? Like what like, because there's no guidebook for life on what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
And so when something new happens, there's a state of normlessness where it's just like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And so
there's no precedent set at the moment.
Yeah. And so I'm going to relate this back to our whole OnlyFans discussion.
Yeah.
So like before our time, it seems to be very uncomfortable being gay.
Yes.
And if you told other people, you get beat up for it because it's weird.
Yes.
Normal now. Like
Yep.
That
it
is.
It has become normalized.
And so now the whole thing where like this whole OnlyFans thing where it's like it seems to be kind of not as bad selling your body
Yes,
or
and I think,
showing your body.
I think OnlyFans specifically is part of this smaller piece. This is a smaller piece of this bigger discussion that we have definitely been experiencing at the very least prominently over the last 5 years of we're kind of going through a second push of women empowerment, be like equal rights, all of that is like we experience that, like we didn't, but like our society experienced that first in what was it, 60s, 50s, 60s and onward.
Yeah.
And it's been like it's always been a thing since that, but like now we're coming to another huge push where people are being like, yeah, but we haven't really reached the point where it was initially wanting to be. And then it's like, then it's this next push of like, specifically about the OnlyFans thing. Well, you shouldn't do that. That's not morally right.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. And then it's like coming from the person who's probably the most distance from being in that situation. Like there's so many factors that have to do with, for example, being a woman, having their own set of challenges throughout life, are now in the situation where they can do the thing that's unique to them and even get ahead. And then it's like, oh, that's a nice tempting offer there. And then they do it. And then all the people who can't do that are like, how dare you? What a lazy thing to do. How sleazy.
Well, I'm even sure there'd be some people that could do it, but that would make them uncomfortable. So like,
yes,
oh, you slut.
Exactly. Traditionalism, and I've said this a lot, but like I feel like traditionalism is like so big in our society right now in terms of like, and we're moving away from it very obviously, but like it's so ingrained into our society of like, well, this is the old thinking, so that needs to carry on into the new thinking. And it's hard to like break away from like old teachings to then evolve as a society.
Yeah, like I forgot in legal terms, that's like a school of thought for legal laws. It's like, oh, this law is good because we've had it since however long it's withstood the test of time.
Right.
And that could be a form of viewing like your traditionalism, like, oh, we've always had these traditions since however long. Because so how I view it, like, so when speaking of traditions, like, I think it's good to move forward.
Yes.
And looking like there's times when your tradition is like, it's so hard to be in the moment. Oh, this is wrong with our tradition.
Oh yeah, it's always in retrospect.
Yeah, and so how I think things will always change. Like for example, like Salem witch trials. At some point, it was normal to accuse someone of being a witch and then killing them. That was just how it was.
That was literally just life.
Yes, and that's how people in that town went about it.
Yep.
Which is like, for me, I could look back and that's fucking crazy.
Yes.
And so, like, we could even get like super spiritual here and be like, oh, you shouldn't care like if my mom has an OnlyFans because you need to become more detached from reality. You need to you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Stop worrying about that kind of thing.
Yeah, like worrying will get you nowhere. So we're like some weird enlightened approach.
Yeah.
We're like, 200 years from now, people could criticize how I'm thinking for like, why the fuck would you think that way?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure it's happening right now.
Yeah, just like what we do when we look back and be like, you dumbass.
Yeah. Why would you ever think that way?
And so how I like to view Cyberpunk 2077, again, tying it back, the whole point of the game being the future 77.
Yep.
Is in that game, like, everything's obviously advanced. You have these like flying cars,
like technologically advanced. Yeah.
Like people are cyborgs because you can look more pretty, be more strong, be more smart,
right?
Whatever you want, you could have it. And so then I always wonder then, like, obviously people's normality in that game would be so different than what we currently are living in.
Yes.
And so I'm always wondering, like, what would their ethics be like? Because I wouldn't be surprised if it was like let's just say you had an IQ of like 86 or below, or an 89 or below. Because I think if you have like an 86 or 89 below, you can't get into the military.
Interesting. I don't even know what the standard good versus bad IQ even is.
I think
Maybe that says
I
something
think the
about my
baseline's always like hundreds average, whatever they say.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, but like with these people that are more advanced in that time than we are today, would they have solutions that'd be like, oh, we can make you smarter by putting this chip in your head? Or would it be like, hey, we need to be more effective with our resources, we just need to kill them off? Like,
Yeah.
like-
I'm more, like we were saying before, utilitarian versus
a divine command,
Yeah.
a natural law where it's like, oh, killing people because they're dumb's about, like, however you want to view, like basically a consequence versus a non-consequence based.
Yep.
Or Kant, which is non-consequence. Anyways, and so I always wonder then what their norms would be like in the future. And again, I also like to think about like aliens that are going across galaxies, like what are their norms like, what are their ethics like?
Yeah.
But I always find it interesting when thinking about like the whole 50 years from now, what the norms will be like then compared to what we have today. And again,
Yeah.
like how I view the whole getting a new norm, because they're going to have a transition period where it's like you'll make it okay or you won't make it okay. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like you'll
right.
have those transition periods. And I don't know, that's just something I like to think about, where it's just like, what's going to happen? Because I'm sure at some point, like Sharia law in the Middle East, maybe at some point over how long, maybe at some point they're like, oh, we don't need to do that anymore.
Right.
Like, women can do their own thing.
Right. But that all depends on, and I think the biggest factor in change in general is like the willingness to. And it's so hard to be willing to not do the thing you've been doing for 30 or 40 years straight, or you've believed your whole life. Like it's near impossible to be like, I'll just flip on a dime with no reason.
Yeah.
Most people's reason is near-death experiences or tragedy.
Mhm.
That's when a light bulb in their head flicks and they're like, I'm going to change my beliefs. I feel like those are the main, like pretty much only circumstances at people over a certain age. Like young people are notoriously liberal. Young people are notoriously wanting change and pushing for change.
Freedom.
And they're notoriously easy to be taught. You could argue that a little bit, but like,
Well, that scientifically, depending on how old you want
Yes.
to be, like that is just actually factually
exactly.
correct.
That's essentially what I'm getting at is while like people are in their young stages, they are way more open-minded and able to learn and research, which then affects their decisions. But then after they hit a certain age, they almost hit a wall, and then they stick to
Well, like-
whatever they were last believing until they die,
Well,
essentially.
even like I think we start our cognitive decline at like 27. By the way,
yeah.
So like,
At least as males, I
Yeah.
think.
I would assume females wouldn't be too far out there.
No, it's only like a couple year gap, but
And like considering, I think average human in the U.S. is like what, like 75, 80,
yeah,
something like that.
close
for-
to late 80s. At least I think our generation. I think the 2 generations back, they actually live way longer because they don't have as many. Well, I wouldn't say they don't have as many, but it's not as easy to get a hold of all these like incredibly unhealthy things that we put ourselves through nowadays.
Yeah.
But like there was definitely some lethal things. I think the main problem was that back in those days, if something was bad for you, it'd kill you pretty quick. Or
Oh,
like
yeah.
nowadays, if something's bad for you, it's gonna.
We're getting pretty good at this whole medical thing.
That's true.
But so going back to what you were saying, I can relate this back to psilocybin, mushroom psychedelic drug.
Oh, okay.
But before I do that, so like we start cognitive decline like 27 or whatever it is.
Right.
Like that means for the most of your life you're on cognitive decline. When viewing it that
The
way,
largest percentage of your life is spent
in cognitive
in
decline.
cognitive decline.
That's
That's
a bummer.
optimistic. Yeah, I would say yeah, exactly. That's encouraging.
And so it kind of makes sense for the older people to like hold on to those beliefs where you're like, oh damn, whatever current generation is for the older generation.
Yeah.
Which I think that's why we quite literally see these change happens with the other generations.
It's always in generations. Yeah.
And I wanted to like okay, from what I remember, I wanted to research the guy to make sure this is legit, but it was a TED Talks. And
Okay.
I would hope that the people that get on for TED Talks knew their stuff.
Yeah. I'd say it's more reputable than just reading an article.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, take it for what it's worth. I don't know if this guy was a doctor or not. But he started talking about psilocybin, which is found in psilocybin mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And he started talking about the effects of it and what it actually does to the brain.
Okay.
And so like, what is it, like neurons in the brain? I don't remember. But like this goes back to like a child's brain compared to like an adult's brain. The child's brain's a lot more active. It's like in learning mode, all this experiences.
Right.
And then as you get to the adult, stuff like that starts to settle down. You get like an identity, quote unquote. You get a grip of what's going
Yeah.
on. So there's no need for you to be in that state.
Right.
And so supposedly if the psilocybin, when you take that, it puts your brain back in that mode, in this whole learning mode.
Whoa.
And things start getting more active and start flashing more and stuff like that.
Oh.
Which like, because I know then we get back into I just know of a few people. It's called like microdosing. So you take like a small amount of like psilocybin,
Yeah.
and they like use it to try to treat like depression, anxiety, and stuff like that.
Right.
But I know again, Terrence McKenna's talked about in one of his lectures. He had he knew a doctor in like Vietnam or what's the I want to call it red light district, but like every place has a red light district. That's where the prostitutes are.
Oh. I have no idea where you're
Not
going.
Vietnam or Taiwan. It was
Okay.
Vietnam or Taiwan. I don't remember. I think the eye doctors from one of those places. And he had patients like do their eye tests like normal. It's like you have this vision, you have this vision, you have this vision, blah blah blah, for all the
Right.
different patients. I don't know the exact details of the experiment, but that at some point the doctor was like, "Hey, take these psilocybin mushrooms and then do your eye test." And then when they all took it, they all had better scores on their
What
eye
the-
tests when taking the psilocybin mushroom, which again is a weird thing because like that fucks with your brain,
Yeah.
but like it's weird then that's improving their eyesight and they could see more clearly, literally,
Weird.
when they're taking a hallucinogenic substance.
Whoa.
And it's like, oh, that is kind of weird.
It's got some magical properties to it. But you'd have to keep taking it to maintain that, I assume.
No clue. Maybe like
Or if it's like a permanent fix. I doubt it's a permanent
I
fix.
doubt it. Maybe-
But I don't know. That's fascinating. It's similar to what is it? Cannabis or
CBD. So
CBD. Yeah.
Okay.
Where you take small amounts of it to kind of keep yourself at a level state if you're super off on either side, but like you can't not do it and expect it to be normal. So it's just fascinating. Well,
All right.
that was a good discussion. That was full theory mode.
I know.
That was good.
I didn't want to go too off the wall like conspiracy theorists. I was like, let's try to
we
narrow it down here.
We'll eventually do some conspiracy theories when I guess I brush up on it because I'm not usually into those.
Pick one and stick with it. and
I know
learn.
one that I guess I know enough to talk about, but like
Just join the flat
that's about
earthers.
it. Yeah, you know what? That's gonna be my social experiment. I'm
All
gonna
right.
try to convince myself that the Earth is flat.
I was gonna send it to Davis, but like it was a picture of all the planets as one. So like the very top, it was like Mercury
Okay.
and then Venus, and like the whole like the top of the picture was Venus. Then like
Are you saying like they're all flat?
no.
Oh.
Like think of it like a sphere, right?
Yeah.
Like just think of the Earth, and then like you took the top portion of Earth, you just replaced it with Venus.
Oh yeah. I see.
And like it was a planet that was just
made up of all the
made
other
up of all the
planets.
other planets. And when it got to Earth, it was just a disc because it was flat. And then it went back to normal where like everything was like third dimensional again.
There's a documentary on Netflix that just dives deep into just like that whole discussion, but it's from the point of view of the actual flat earthers. So it's like it's almost taking the side of theirs, but it's clearly not. It's just like it's letting them have a platform to speak.
Okay.
But even when they have the platform, it's like
I'll say I am not a flat earther believer. There's a lot of other interesting things.
I don't even support the sympathizing of the flat earthers. I don't think you should. You shouldn't put anybody down, but I truly believe that like most of the people who like claim to be like really in belief of it aren't. Like there's just unless you just completely cut yourself off, there's no way for you like you just
like,
can't.
That's the beautiful thing that you pay the price for freedom. Because you have all the
Yeah.
crazy things on the flip side where like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But then on the others, like that's you could call those the lows.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, you have all the other wonderful things in life that
Yeah.
we do.
There's always a shadow side to something.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was episode 6.
Holy shit.
We're already 6
6.
episodes in, dude. 6 weeks. 7 if you count episode 0. But episode 0 isn't available on Spotify or iTunes. That's intentional. But
All right.
if you want to see episode 0, you're going to have to check out our YouTube channel. That was our test episode. But yeah, that was a little less. Our last 2 episodes haven't been like serious episodes. Maybe we kick it back into more philosophical. I don't know.
It's kind of philosophical.
It was scientific
Yes. Scientific, conspiracy, and
Yeah.
some philosophy of the art.
theorizing. Good stuff. All right. Well, do you have anything else to say before we leave?
Well, I do, but this is for our discussion after the podcast.
Okay. Well, you're gonna have to save it for after the podcast.
I know.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like/subscribe.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
We are on Facebook, iTunes. Yeah, I was about to correct myself. Yeah, Facebook, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, everything. If you want, follow us. If you're listening on iTunes, leave a review. That's helpful. Lets other people know that like
Same with the comments.
if
on
you
YouTube.
like it. I mean, if you like it, yes, like, comment, leave a good
This is
rating.
way too long. We got to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm rambling. Bye-bye.